Come on up, guys. Welcome, welcome. Good morning. What a day, what a morning it's been so far. I want to introduce the panelists here, well known to the Earthshot community. Olubanjo, he's founder and CEO of Reeddi, in the middle there. Right next to me is Gator Halpern. He's co-founder and president of Vita. And then at the far side, Dr. Sebastian Groh. He's founder and CEO of SOLshare. So I thought just to kick off the conversation, there's been some great videos highlighting the work that everybody's doing. But just briefly, tell us about what you guys are up to. And let's start with you, Sebastian, over at SOLshare. What you are doing to help save the planet.
I think we're doing a lot of things the West would like to do and should do. We're operating in Bangladesh. And I bought a little prop here.
We love props.
It says SOLshare Smart Bangladesh Tesla. No copyright infringement here. So just last time I checked, Tesla had sold about 2 million cars globally. In Bangladesh, we have about 2.5 million, 3 million, whoever source you believe, which are running on the road right now. And that's just one of those examples where I think that countries like Bangladesh can teach the rest of the world quite a bit. SOLshare has started out by interconnecting solar home systems. That means there are solar systems in houses, and some people don't have solar, and we interconnected them with a cable so people could trade or share, SOLshare, solar electricity house to house.
So peer-to-peer networks.
Peer-to-peer networks, exactly. And it happened to be, it was the first in the world, which is astonishing. It's like intuitive, no? If I have too much power and my neighbor has nothing, I'll pass it on to him. But no, it's apparently not that easy. So we did this as the first in the world, and then we found a lot of these electric vehicles coming into our grids. And we're like, how are you being charged? And what could you do? Because you are moving storage. So we always talk about the future of energy and what might come. The future of energy is in Bangladesh right now, and it's ready to scale. And SOLshare basically manages energy. We manage the energy flows. We manage the solar power generation. We manage the storage. And we make sure that everybody has reliable access to electricity.
Olu, come on in on this, because you also are working in clean energy. Tell us about Reeddi.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
You brought a prop, too.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm going to, just starting from the name, so Reeddi, our goal is to make electricity available and affordable to everyone, anytime and anywhere. So a little bit of background of why that was important. So the first 24 years of my life was spent in Nigeria, where access to electricity was a challenge. Access to clean and reliable electricity was a challenge. So growing up, I struggled in one way or the other with electricity access and reliability. And I flipped to Toronto for the first time in my life. I had like 24/7 access to electricity, and I saw how my productivity quadrupled. I was like, why do we still have over 100 million people in Nigeria alone struggling with energy, one type of energy poverty or the other? So I told myself I need to solve this, given the fact that I've been able to see the two sides of the coin and see how productivity could change when there is energy. And we all know that without energy, we won't even be here today. Energy is foundational to all innovation. And because of that, we created Reeddi. And the goal is having the average person in Nigeria, in Africa, which we have 600 million of people living with access to power, and globally roughly 1 billion people, they should be able to access electricity on the go. And our goal already is to eliminate that upfront cost barrier when it comes to accessing electricity. So we make electricity access as easy as buying milk in the corner store. And we do that with our innovation, which is the Reeddi capsule, which is what I have here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Gator, come on in on Vita. And we have 2 finalists and then a winner of the Earthshot Prize, although I think many would argue that you're all winners in terms of the work that you are doing. But Gator, tell us about Vita. Oceans are near and dear to me as a diver, and it's been staggering to see in the last 10 years, and then how they've been just ruined. And you're working to change that.
Well, thanks so much for having us, and hopefully you'll be able to come dive with us in the Bahamas sometime soon. So many of you will know what's happening with our world's oceans, and particularly what's happening in coral reefs is an extremely dire situation. Since the 1970s, half of the world's reefs have already died. And
Can
scientists,
you say that again?
yeah, since the 70s, and just, most of our lifetimes, half of the world's reefs, this essential cornerstone ecosystem to life on Earth, has died. And scientists project that moving forward by 2050, if we're able to keep climate change to the 1.5 degree target, over 90% of reefs will still end up dying. And if we don't reach that target, over 99% of reefs will die. And this is clearly an ecological tragedy. These are some of the most biodiverse ecosystems on Earth, supporting a quarter of all marine life in the ocean, all biodiversity in the ocean. But it's also an extremely important socioeconomic issue, as reefs support the livelihoods of up to 1 billion people around the world. They are essential parts of tourism economies. They provide the support and the foundation of fisheries all throughout the tropics. And they are barrier reefs for a reason. They are the barrier between the open ocean and coastal communities and act as these natural seawalls. All of that value is lost as these reefs continue to degrade. And so at Coral Vita, we are creating high-tech land-based coral farms where we can actually grow coral up to 50 times how fast they grow in nature. For some species, that's growing corals in months rather than decades. And we can actually adapt those corals to be more resilient against the warming and acidifying ocean conditions that threaten their survival. We can grow these corals in mass at our facilities and distribute them to restoration projects around the region to sustain these reefs and bring them back to life so that they can continue to benefit the hundreds of millions of people around the world that depend upon them.
So yes, yes, and yes, we need you all. And I guess I say that because I think about what Christiana said about scaling up and exponentially making an impact. We hear these projections of in 2040, 2050. I don't know that we've got that much time anymore. So let's talk about scaling up. And Sebastian, let me go back to you. Tell me how you are scaling up and how it's going.
Let me, Carol, just this 20, 30, 40, 50. Last time I checked, 2027 is our deadline. That's when we have irreversible change, right? I think Matt Damon mentioned it's probably earlier. Last time I checked, it's 2027. So I think it's speed and scale and also impact. And when I say impact, what I mean is I think a large part of the fight against climate change will be decided in the emerging markets. And this is where I think this is ground zero.
Because they have to.
Because they have to, but because also they will produce the majority of the emissions. So you need to come in now so you avoid those lock-ins where you go on a trajectory which will be then very, very hard to reverse. So this is really a call, let's focus on the emerging markets here. Let's focus on where the big parts of the population is, where the big part of the future emissions are. And in terms of scaling, 2.5 million vehicles, which are today EVs, now we have to work very hard that the drivers of those vehicles, and that's the impact part, that they make a good income, because that is key, and that those vehicles are powered by renewable energy, and that needs to go ultra fast. But for this, we need more capital to flow in solutions which work today, not future of energy. No, energy today, which is renewably powered and which gives them a good income. And that's where the scale needs to come, and that's where the capital needs to go, to solutions which work today. Because we don't have the time. Breakthrough innovations, that's great, but I think the focus should be on today.
So you're scaling up, but if you've got more capital, more everything, you can do that much faster. Olu, come on in on scaling up, what you guys are doing and how it's going.
Yeah, so for Reeddi, what we've done in the past 3 years, so after I left the University of Toronto, I committed all my life to trying to solve this problem because, I've lived the pain. So right now we have over 1,500 houses and businesses that access electricity through the Reeddi capsule. And what we do basically is to allow these people, we have this Reeddi solar-powered station where these capsules are charged, and we leverage the existing corner store for people to go to those stores to rent the Reeddi capsule. So kind of creating some income there and wealth generation for people while also still giving people access to electricity. For us, scale for us will be trying to roll this out to more communities in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. One of the obvious barriers, it's one of the challenges around like capital and the complication in the emerging markets. But we think there's obviously a lot of like innovation in those spaces where that with the right capital could actually like accelerate their potential. And like Sebastian said, there's a lot of like things that the developed world could learn from like the emerging market like Africa and Nigeria, where there's limited resources, but in that limitation, people have to like find a way to optimize capital to get the best results. Like basically, that's the mantra we work with at Reeddi, where we need to, as a company, we have to build from the ground up our digital rental infrastructure to be able to rent these. We have to build the hardware resources to be able to make this work, and all that has to be done with a tiny piece of capital, which, I mean, obviously, if it's been in a different market, it probably would have been different. So scaling up for us is rolling this across more communities, more regions in Africa, because as I speak today, there's still 100 million people without access to power. And I was part of that in the last 4 years. And anytime I go back to Nigeria,
it's hard. We're all surrounded by so much power, and then unless you're in an emerging market, do you realize?
When you go back, you just feel it's a different ballgame entirely. It's you have to think about, you have to basically plan your time around that. And for us, if we're able to get this across, we think that would accelerate a lot of things from education, healthcare, to water access for a lot of people in Nigeria, in Africa, and even Southeast Asia, where electricity is still a big challenge.
Gator, come on in on this. And first of all, I think you said to us on our planning call that Earthshot Prize made no small part in our acceleration. So take us back there and talk to us about scaling up.
So to scale any of our companies, you need the kind of traditional company needs, the capital, we need to develop the tech, we need to have the right business model. But when we're trying to address these systemic global issues, a key part of being able to make this change is the connections to the change makers and the stakeholders that can really drive change in different communities where we're working around the world. And that's really an essential piece that the Earthshot Prize and the partners through Bloomberg and others have been able to help us at Vita, is really figuring out how we're going to scale, not from a technological standpoint, but from a partnership standpoint, where we're going to build farms 2, 3, 4, and 5 over the next years, and being able to work with those local stakeholders that are essential when you're talking about restoring these natural ecosystems and creating new economic models of a restoration economy in different countries around the world. And so really the network and the ability to open doors and talk to the different regulators and private sector partners that are able to work with us and support these types of movements is an essential piece of being able to scale these solutions all over the planet.
What doors have opened up? Tell us about some of the growth that you guys are doing. I think you're in Middle East and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I've been spending a lot of time in the Middle East recently. So we're based in the Bahamas, where we're also scaling our work, but we're looking at where we're going to build other farms. And the Saudis are investing heavily in reef restoration, ocean conservation. We're starting to work with them to develop their strategy on restoration in the Red Sea. Through the Earthshot Prize, we're also working with Dubai Ports World on the other side of the Arabian Peninsula to try to see how we can do large-scale ecosystem restoration in the Arab Emirates. We're connecting with folks in the Maldives, as well as the country of Costa Rica, who we were able to connect with through the Earthshot Prize, and see how we can take the amazing leadership and work that they've shown on land and bring that to restoration in the ocean space as well. And so it's a very exciting inflection point. It's been a bit of a whirlwind of a year since winning the Earthshot Prize, and we're extremely excited to work with the entire community to see how we can restore reefs all around the world.
Well, take me back. Let's just go back for a second, because I think about, we heard Prince William talk about the Earthshot Prize and also the growth, they're seeing as you guys were in the inaugural year, and here we are in another year. But where were you when you found out that you were named, and what did it mean?
Yeah, you just asked us, and I was like, it seems like a decade ago. It was only a year, but it seems like a decade
That's
ago.
COVID time is.
It was
a whole
COVID
new
time,
dynamic.
and it was over a screen, but obviously it was. I mean, I don't think I personally understood the gravity of that being a finalist, because like today or the dinner last night, you don't understand this in the moment when you are told what this could possibly imply, because it was also stacked up somehow, and I think this right now here, these couple of days is definitely a highlight of this whole thing. So yeah, breathtaking, whirlwind, I think these are the kind of words which describe it the best.
So where were you? No, I'm just kidding. Olu, how about for you?
Yeah, so for us, when we started, when we got the news about Earthshot, sincerely, I got a question about how did I apply. I just got a nomination from Energy Nexus, and I just sent a just quick application, and the scales, they were screening, and we won. We were one of the finalists, and sincerely, I never knew how big it's gonna be. But over the years, I think what Earthshot has done for us specifically, beyond giving us access to mentors, access to the broader community of from experts to government to individuals that have capital with potential to scale what we are doing, it's also that mindset shift around thinking much more broadly about what this innovation could become. So, it's something that we have to because for us, the mindset matters more. And what Earthshot has done is to help catalyze that mindset around this thing could be widely scalable. And we took that into our team, and everybody has been super excited. I think the prize has given us a lot of global endorsements, so open a lot of doors, put a lot of credibility to what we are doing. We're obviously excited to continue to ride on that wave as we continue to scale more of our innovation. I will always say after the Earthshot Prize, we changed the motto of our company from limitless innovation to make the future, because at that point we felt we've been empowered now to make the future with the community of resources and people that the Earthshot Prize have empowered us with. And the next 10 years, we're looking back to probably building one of the most sustainable company ever with Reeddi, and that's what drives us. And we are very sure with Earthshot at our back, we can make that possible.
No pressure, guys, but if it wasn't for Earthshot, would you be here? No. Know your audience. No, but you talked about the acceleration, and it's interesting to hear the things we often talk about with all that ails us, about how many people don't have seats at the table. And it does sound like this gave you a seat at the table with individuals and mentors and just different people with skill sets to help you go to the next level. Having said that, nothing's ever a straight line up, and we know that. And you guys have hinted a little bit on it. And I want to go back to you, Sebastian, because I think you talked about one of the toughest thing. I think the toughest nut you said is government and government regulation. So talk to us a little bit about that, and maybe for all the governments that are here at this incredible event, just one more thing on their list, but an important thing when we're talking about saving the world.
I started out saying we're doing a lot of things which the West would like to do or should do.
Yeah.
One thing was this of sharing solar electricity. So why is it not happening everywhere? Because you are not allowed to sell electricity to your neighbor. So there we were very lucky, because we worked in areas which are called off-grid areas, which means people who do not have access to the electricity grid, like a lot of the work Olu is doing. And it happened to be that those areas were unregulated. So we were able to do that. So we have 120 grids where people share electricity. During the current energy crisis, this is immensely powerful. But then the national grid came, and suddenly all those areas were falling under regulation. Comes the COP in Glasgow, where the Prime Minister of Bangladesh was there, and the Earthshot team. And we said, look, we need now those smart grids to be able to sell to the national grid. Otherwise, we have a problem. If this is disintegrated, we have a double infrastructure which costs double money, and in this case, double money for the poor people. And we got a special permission. The Foreign Commonwealth Development Office bankrolled a project where, again, for the first time, we interconnected one of our smart peer-to-peer grids to the national grid, What that means is that the people who were initially left out because the grid never reached them and who took things into their own hands because they bought a solar home system, they are now co-powering their country. And they are super proud of that. And nobody would have expected it. How does a small, tiny household with a small solar system with a battery? So we interconnected them all. And this is really the power of the swarm, right? You have a power of numbers. So all these interconnected now are connected to the national grid. And I think this is what the future of energy is about. You have these decentralized assets, and how do you smartly interconnect them with the centralized systems?
And it seems so logical.
As long as we need the centralized systems.
Good point. Gator, come on in on this. When dealing with government and the environment and our oceans, I mean, governments have a lot to say on this. Relationships with governments is tough. You see the same thing or similar.
Yeah, it's essential wherever we're working to have a strong partnership with the local government.
But is it easy?
It hasn't been easy yet, I'll tell you that much. There's a lot of different layers of regulation, and in Florida, for instance, you gotta do the state of Florida, the federal government, the National Park Service, NOAA. You have to get about 5 different permits from different agencies in order to touch a coral in Florida, even if you're doing some activist, something good for the reef. And so being able to navigate that is a pretty huge barrier to entry. And on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of small island developing states and different nations don't have as much capacity within their governments in order to properly manage the marine resources. And so being able to support those governments and provide them with the resources they need so that they can make the decisions that they need to in order to manage their resources in the best way for their own communities is another essential piece to being able to do this work in different places around the world. And going back to your last question on how it felt for us, it ties into this because really I felt immensely proud of the team at Coral Vita, and especially seeing the people that were alongside in the Revive Our Oceans category. We heard earlier today from Enrique Sala, who's an absolute hero of mine, a legend in the field of ocean conservation. He's on the ocean conservation Rushmore alongside Jacques Cousteau and Sylvia Earle. And so the work that he does in working with these governments and giving them the support they need from a policy standpoint and from a science standpoint to be able to make the difficult decisions that you have to make when you're balancing all the issues that governments have to be able to drive sustainable, reviving solutions of our oceans. And so it's an absolute pleasure to be living in the time where I get to work with Enrique and know him well and count him as a friend. And so that's another huge part of this whole process, and the Earthshot Prize in general is, being able to meet the folks and get to know the other people in this network has been extremely special.
Olu, come on in on this. I know in our planning call when we were talking about governments, and you said, when it comes to Nigeria, you and your team try to avoid governments. Was I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the reality, right? So one of my big bros just told me, Olu, try to focus on the markets and try to avoid the government as much as possible. But I must commend the Nigerian government. They've been doing a lot when it comes to energy access in Nigeria. There's a lot of new initiatives that are coming up. Yeah. And we've been a beneficiary of some of the support.
And I think everybody tries to avoid as much government as possible, to be fair.
There's a lot of local support for catalyzing energy innovation in Nigeria by the Nigerian government, by REA. I met with Damlola yesterday, and she's the CEO of SDG for All, and they are doing a lot of amazing work in Nigeria, catalyzing that clean energy adoption. For us, I think, obviously, we are at this point where we had to test out what we have, the rental model we have, which is kind of not a common thing in Nigeria. People are used to just buying things off. So when we kind of introduced rental, everybody was like, "What are these guys doing? Is it going to work?" So right now, being able to prove that and build the infrastructure of that, and we are at this point where we are ready to take that flight. There's no way we can do it without embracing government. So, but we are very, very sure that. The community we have behind us, the Earthshot community, will obviously allow that process to go very smooth. Because again, I met just yesterday at dinner, I met with two very key people in the Nigerian government, and those would, we believe they will help us like catalyze the adoption of what we are doing. Besides like adding that with capital, we think it's going to change a lot of stuff. So they are doing their best, and we think we'll be able to work with them with the experience of Earthshot and all to push our innovation to more adoption in Nigeria.
I want to open it up to some questions in the audience if anybody has it. This is a pretty incredible panel in terms of the work that they're doing. Does anybody have any questions? Great. Question right there. Thanks, Meg.
Hi. Hi. I'm Amelia. I'm here on behalf of the Sustainable Ocean Alliance, which I think Coral Vita is also part of. I'm just wondering, and this is for anybody, so before the Earthshot Prize, before you had these networks or resources or mentorship or whatever, how did you even begin embarking upon any of these journeys? They just are so massive, and it's so impressive that you guys have gotten to where you have without any connections. So I'm just wondering.
Great question. Who wants to take it?
I could go for that. I think I'm probably the youngest there. Yeah. So for me, it's, I've always been an entrepreneur all my life. I came from a family where there's always, everybody wants to solve a problem one way or the other. But the moment I flipped from Nigeria to Toronto, I was always looking for how to get my hands wet. I was doing my master's degree, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore the pain when I called my mom and she tells me, oh, I couldn't complete the course yesterday because there's no power. And I just felt, you know what, somebody has to do this. And me, having lived that pain, I couldn't imagine, I couldn't ignore it. I mean, I came from an engineering background. I'm equipped with all the technical knowledge, a little bit of business knowledge, working, having been in business for a while as well. So I felt I'm just positioned to work, to make that work. And in the process of just thinking through how do we make this work, I was in my bathroom one time and I was just using soap. And we're just pulling soap from from the liquid soap to my sponge. And I was like, okay, why can't we make energy as easy as something you can just move around? Why does it have to be this fixed box? Because the challenge in Nigeria is that most of the innovation in Africa are fixed. So someone like my mom owns a small store, and she also lives in a place where energy is not that accessible. So she has to buy these boxes in her home, another box in her shop. Basically makes it very expensive. And what happens is that for people that don't have access to power, that also are limited, that have limited resources, they can't just access power on the go. So they are limited by the cost, and they are limited by the amount of system they have to buy. So for me, the thinking was make this energy system mobile, make it easy, and more importantly, it can't just be charging people's phones. It has to do more. So it should be able to it should be able to offer both AC and DC power. So bringing that together was what catalyzed that. Then I brought a lot of friends together. Then we just started one connection led to the other connection, and yeah, I mean, we are where we are today. Yeah, so basically it's just that. It's just not smooth, but a lot of wobbly process here and there with support from a lot of organizations, including the Earthshot Prize.
Another question?
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very inspiring. Thank you very much. I have a question for Gator, just because I think it's a project that leads itself to this. The other founder of an EV company, Elon Musk, got in a Twitter battle a few months ago on hunger. Someone said, if you take a piece of your wealth, $6 billion, you could solve hunger. And he said, if you can prove it, I'll put the $6 billion down. Feels to me like coral reefs, given what you said, is something that you could move much, much faster. Have you calculated how much money it would take to fix the problem, get back to 100%, and how much time it would take you if you had all the resources that you wanted?
Great question.
That is quite a question. So
You work for Elon Musk?
if Elon's out there, we need all of your money now.
He's got a little thing he's working with called Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. So great question. I mean, I don't think you can overestimate the size of the challenge that is reef degradation. We're talking about the world's the first ecosystem on Earth, global ecosystem that we're seeing collapse in our lifetime. And so the scale of the issue is massive, and you're going to need a lot more than the $6 billion in order to keep 100% of reefs alive. In fact, I don't think we're even shooting for 100% of reefs alive. NOAA's goal is to keep 5% of reefs alive in the Caribbean, and they think that if you can sustain 5%, then you'll have the biodiversity and fish stocks that can continue to support and sustain the rest of reefs. So taking that number as a target, we're clearly going to need a huge shift in the field of reef restoration from the small community-based projects that are done nowadays where there's maybe tens of millions of dollars in the space to a full-fledged industry in the billions of dollars a year being spent towards sustaining these ecosystems, which could sound like a lot if I'm asking Elon Musk for $1 billion a year or whatnot. But when you think about the value that these reefs are providing, it's tens of billions of dollars. Some estimates have reefs values at trillions of dollars they're providing to communities around the world each year. And we're only spending tens of millions to actually restore these ecosystems right now. So there's a huge imbalance between the amount of funding that needs to go into this space to continue to provide those, the support needed so that the value can continue to be derived from these ecosystems. And so that's what we're doing at Coral Vita, is really trying to create a commercial model that can support an industry and really shift the economy towards a restoration economy, which I think needs to be trillions of dollars, a gigantic sector of what we do in our economy as humans, as a species, is to support the regeneration of the ecosystems that in turn support us all.
It's a really different economy. Sebastian, come in on this. We're getting ready to wrap up. We know Bill Gates is coming up. What would be your message to him?
And swoops.
I like to live on the edge a little bit.
Very, very, very good timing.
Oh, did somebody walk in?
No, so I mean, at the expense
No.
of.
This is a helpful environment. And you talk about collaboration, learning from people.
Let me underline this again. I think the fight for climate change is decided in emerging markets. Everybody knows here the time value of money. There's a time value of carbon, so we need to act now because the cumulative effect is getting stronger and stronger. For this, I think we should invest in solutions which work today. I'm not necessarily a big fan of big swing thinking. There should be capital to it, but what works today and what can really be scaled with a deep impact today. And sometimes we need to look to solutions and innovations in places where we might not expect it. Like in our case in Bangladesh, obviously the country is the biggest sufferer, so they have an idea or two how to deal with climate change. And I think there should more focus go and scale those solutions which work today.
We're going to leave it on that note. Sebastian, Olu, Gator, thank you so much.